Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do another Thud track. This is the extra, and this is the final one, I believe. But I'll make an announcement. I guess I could just make the announcement right now before I get into it. I wanted, I talked about the Shaman of the True to doing a similar thing, and if a book, which my prediction is they're going to, produce some kind of book like this, might be more expansive, for the Shaman of the True multi-disc. But I've never really talked about, and I haven't listened to this in a long time, sadly, Live at the Troubadour. So I'm not going to do it now. I might wait till around the time of maybe the anniversary of the anniversary that happens in May, of course. Maybe around then. I'm not sure. But I intend to do a review of this album after I'm, at some point down in the near future. But related to that is the two tracks one song that actually was on here. I'm doing this the last two tracks here. Miss Broadway and a song called Big Heart. Now, Miss Broadway, of course, the only version that many had heard for the longest time was the Live at the Troubadour. But I'm not going to compare the two, because it's a live version. It's a little different, I guess. I mean, I could say they're different. They're not identical, but they're similar. So, there's a few things about Miss Broadway, and I don't know every little detail, but of course, it's largely known to be the song that was written about Cheryl. I mean, the one song he did, and it was bitter. Of course, on the Shaman of the True, the song Fun references Sheryl Crow. So, it's very lyrical. I didn't write all the lyrics down for it, but when it did come out on the 20th anniversary of Thud, it was great to finally hear a finished, recorded version of it. And it's very lyrical, like a lot of Thud, but it also is musically, it's very interesting. It's a song that I do like, but I have not listened to it that many times for various reasons, just because the message and the whole thing with Sheryl Crow can't be ignored. There was one other bit about it. The band Incubus has a song, one of their more popular songs. It's called, one of their singles. That's really almost the same. It's one of them that came out in the early 2000s. I think it's Drive. Pretty sure, yes. Listen to the song Drive, and if you ever get around to listening to Miss Broadway, they're the chord progression's almost exactly the same. It's in the same key. And I wondered, I was on the Incubus message board at one point, the Incubus View. I think it's still around as it came back, activity on it, but it might be on Facebook or something like that. The fans, I've never heard of this, but they agreed with me, because I was able to reference, I think it was on YouTube, of course, at one point, the live version from the Troubadour. So that's just interesting about it. It's 5 minutes and 19 seconds. I mean, there's a lot of, it's not as dark as some of the lyrics on Caviar, but in some ways it's almost more hard to not think about the lyrics compared to even Caviar because of everything. But, it's like, leaving Miss Broadway, can't have my words anymore. He says, can't have my love anymore, another verse. He says, leaving Miss Broadway, that's quite blatantly a reference to Leaving Las Vegas from the Tuesday Night Music Club album, of course, Cheryl's album. Actually, Kevin actually was one of the people that co-wrote. He co-wrote like 6 songs on Tuesday Night Music Club, so it was kind of a blatant, obvious thing, leaving Miss Broadway. But then, lines like, I saw you on my TV taking credit for my work. I knew if I had said anything, I'd be the jerk. Always some ex-boyfriend, some has-been clown, Those lines have always stuck with me with this song, because I've known it. The lyrics are really good. I could have just written them all down, just dissected them more in depth, like a lot of these. Rises to the top, like a woman has to do. You can't see the line. I like the line. You can't see painted toenails on the foot that fits the shoe. I think that's a Cinderella reference. I always think of, kind of like the sort of veiled deception. He's sort of painting that Cinderella, of course. At midnight she goes back to being what she was. Cinderella. Yeah, Cinderella, with the shoe, the slipper that fit her and everything, the glass slipper. Yeah, have my love anymore. I guess I lost my taste for your carrot in my face. That one's unusual. I don't know, maybe when Kevin and Cheryl were hanging out, they like to eat carrots, or that's just a metaphor and just a convenient word to use. There's some good mellotron. The dissonant guitar stains really stand out in the second half. Reminds me almost of like a lot of '90s alternative rock or whatever, and like King's X used that. It's kind of plods along, but I don't get tired of that riff, that rhythm. Lines like, "It must be chilling to stare at your blank page. You're playing. I'm a victim crying. You could smoke and drink and yeah." I mean that whole thing about, well, you know, him and a lot of the Tuesday Night Music Club helped write a lot of those songs. I mean, some of them were hers, but a lot of them were not. Were songs they wrote. So, you know, is she staring at a blank page? Maybe she did. I don't know. You know, of course, there's blank page on Toy Matinee, but I don't know. He was going for it because, you know, he was bitter writing these lyrics. I just rain on your charade. Yeah, I guess, you know. And then at the very end, you hear the bass and the word cool. I mean, it's a very interesting song musically, and it's still interesting lyrically, but it's definitely a bitter song. Unlike Until I Get Her Back, I don't feel that sort of connection from a sympathy standpoint as much on it. I know a lot of people did. But another notable thing about Miss Broadway is it was intended to be... He wrote it and recorded, obviously, at points during the cycle of Thud. It might have been after, because, you know, that whole thing... Because he was working on Thud after Cheryl and him... Because Tuesday Night Music Club came out in '93, and Thud came out like a year and change after that. So, in other words, he was writing it after things had ended between him and Cheryl, romantically, and they're seeing her. But it was going to be that the intention was going to be it was on The Shaman of the True. Now, when they put The Shaman of the True together over those 3-4 years, Nick DiVirgilio and John Kinroberti and the other people with his estate, John Rubin, I don't know if there were notes about, you know, he was got sort of divided on wanting it in the story, why he didn't like the way it portrayed the story. I do suspect there's going to be something more about it, some other versions of it potentially, that will be included on this multi-disc from Shaman of the Truth. So I've always thought of Miss Broadway as like, you know, a slightly lost but different, like an alternate plotline version of track from Shaman of the Truth. I know that Bruno talked about in one of the podcasts about how there's an alternate version of The Shaman of the Truth, and it probably does include Miss Broadway. So, I mean, musically, I don't know if it even would fit the way The Shaman of the Truth is, but anyway. So, moving on to the final track, Big Heart, which cannot be discounted and forgotten, the fact this song was co-written, if not written entirely by Robert Farris, who I noted, of course, he did the Viking, scary Viking vocals, the chanting vocals in the Battlestar Galactica, Cylon vocals in Shadow Self, and other songs with Kevin. One or two songs off Giraffe, because he was originally going to be with Giraffe, Robert Farris, but I really like this song, although having said that, I listened to it a lot when I first got this. I have not listened to it, because I had to like open it up and pull it out and put it on my hard drive and stuff. And I put it pretty high on my rankings of my Kevin Gilbert song list. I don't know if I'd put it quite as high as I did. I think I had it in the top 20 or 25. But it's a really good song. The phrasing is interesting. I was up, now I'm down, but you're not around. But then he goes, I got a big heart. I know you're going to tear my great big heart apart. I mean, it's a simple phrasing, but it works from a sort of a cadence, and a sort of the meter works with that vocal line. The mellotron on it really stands out. It's very kind of esoteric's not the right word, dreamy and moody. It's like there's a couple other songs that remind me of it, because it's got that marching don't. What's the song? I'll remember it later. That starts out like with that riff. Don't. There's another band that does a song a lot like that, whether it be the Deer Hunter or Hotel the Laughing Tree or someone like that. I love Kevin's double vocals where I got a heart, I got a big heart, he's stressing, and you're going to tear him. He repeats that chorus many times. I know you're going to tear my big heart apart. Then the line, yesterday morning all right, I tried to remember the words you said that night. This is in a different time. I don't know what this is. This is maybe in like 5, and the chorus is probably in just 4/4, maybe like 3/4. But it's a change in time signature. So this is Prague, really. Yesterday morning, all right, I tried to remember the words you said that night, but I just can't recall. Was it a Shakespeare sonnet, Chaucer, or Keats? I wish I would have known. It's all true, there'll be no more poetry without you. I thought of Major Parkinson. Major Parkinson has a song where they from the one that 2014 record that I love so much, Cinema, Twilight Cinema. They reference those three particular writers, poets. You know, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Keats. I think maybe one or two more, but that's a great line. Something in a relationship, like someone he was with that liked to read poetry. He repeats the chorus again. I got a heart, I got a big heart, and you know you're going to tear my great big heart apart. But then the bridge, the second bridge in effect, I guess you could say, with the verse. No room left inside, my heart is oceans deep, nations wide. Don't need a doctor to believe it's true, because this heavy heart of mine don't want to be alone, underfed or overgrown. My heart is big, so big. He kind of stresses that. I feel it when we kiss, I feel it when we touch. I'm going psycho because I love you so much. Can you feel my big heart pounding away? This is not I think it says this is not a job I could overplay. It's hard to hear what he exactly says there. Must have been Shakespeare because the knife went so deep. It's just too big for me to keep. That is one of the best lyrical sequences he ever wrote. And then he goes back into the chorus, Mellotron, and I've got a big heart, I've got more Mellotron, big heart, big heart. And then the sustain, there's a sustain of that Mellotron. It's just haunting. Oh yeah, the riff, the guitar riff, some of that reminds me of like the Police. But I don't know, oh, I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Dredge. That's who it is. That joot, 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 joot. Sounds like Convalescence from El Cielo. Holy crap. Of course, Dredge wouldn't have been able to hear it, so it's complete coincidence. That riff has been done probably by many other bands and other artists, but that's what it reminds me of anyway. Convalescence and Big Heart. I wonder if Robert Ferris knows about that. If you've ever heard of Dredge, I kind of doubt it. Robert Ferris is very... he doesn't communicate. He's I don't know if he's introverted or whatever. We've had very little communication about him, unfortunately. But he has been a very accomplished songwriter, and did this song with Kevin. It's one of my favorite songs. So the point that we get this stuff up on streaming, I hope people can hear Big Heart because it's one of Kevin's gems. So it's interesting. To conclude this whole series, reading through the book here, which I never really fully did. It talks about the original Thud release, and the tapes were mastered straight from the original analog tapes to DAT. Gruno and John Crunaberti. But it does talk about the credits. I think I'll just try to read this quick. Thud is the sound of one's head makes as it hits the table. I locked myself in the studio, spat out the vitriolic vocals, and played most of the instruments on this record, although along the way, the following musicians stopped in and contributed parts. Bill Bottrell blathered ethereal warbling Telecaster on Joytown, which he also remixed, sings Ignorant Ooze and When You Give, and came up with a beautiful pedal steel part on Audrey that surprised even him. I think. Brian McLeod smacked his slinky, thuddy drum throughout except on Audrey and T, which was me, so he played the drums on those two songs, but Dan Schwartz stroked the Lord's own bass on the Tuesday Night Music Club tracks and on When You Give Your Love to Me. Robert Ferris and I barked out the scary Viking choirs on Dinner, Late for Dinner, from Shadow Self, of course, and the cloying air singers on Waiting. Steve Steinberg imbibed free sax on Joytown, although I'm not sure he'll remember it. Lyle Workman who's a musician who's been doing stuff recently, but Lyle Workman thrust forth the manly guitar hook on Goodness Gracious. Skip Waring, Toby Holmes, Jay Mueller, and Bruce Friedman blew a mean Salvation Army brass band on All Fall Down. This custom stereophonic high-fidelity recording is not the result of the most modern recording techniques of our time. I produced and zengineered, with a Z, it on an ancient Neve at Lawnmower and Garden Supplies studio in Pasadena, which at the moment also serves as my living room. Additionally, Bill Bottrell and Blair Lamb laid down the basics for songs 3, 7, and 8 at Toad Hall during the Tuesday Night Music Club songwriting sessions for Sheryl Crow's record. Eddie Schreier provided mastering, Natasha provided mistressing, And Warner's, I don't know who Natasha is, and Warner's provided Mr. Mystery. Of course, his humor. Eddie mastered at Future Disc, and a stern master he was, while Natasha stared witheringly. Kudos to Patrick Rains for being the cat under my brake pedal. Jeffrey Newberry shot me with his love camera, and then Mick Haggerty, and I dreamt up the design, which was very good about laying out and pretending to like, which I was. Oh yeah, the cover photo, that's the Baron George Hoynington Huney having a vision of glyphada. Photographer Herbert List captured his head hitting the table on the plains of Glyphada, Greece in 1937, and Max Scheller, with his estate, was very gracious about letting us reprint its goodness here. P.S. Mr. Ed was really Bamboo Harvester. Yeah, that tells you about the cover art that he... I mean, look at some of this Ayn Rand. Some of this stuff. Those are the Miss Broadway lyrics. Where he, you know, I know he'd worked with Herb Ritz. Of course, he references him in The Shaming of the True on Smash. But interesting how this was basically Herb Ritz's cover, but then, you know, some of the pictures of Kevin were probably like superimposed in a similar fashion. But so that's about it for Thud. Like I said, I'm gonna eventually, you know, follow this up with his renowned Troubadour record, which of course I did go to the Troubadour in 2018 to see Michael Nesmith and the Return of the First National Band. It's a big deal. And of course, actually just last weekend, Mickey Dolenz was just playing there himself. But I'll go through this, but it's not going to be yet. I want to kind of focus on some other stuff now. But Thud is a great record, although I admit that it's in the canon of Kevin Gilbert and my initial love of Kevin Gilbert, my attraction, it was not the record that I was drawn to as much to. It always came across as a singer-songwriter record, but you know, you saw so many people that appreciated it and they talked and they did know Kevin Gilbert that I kind of just had to let it continue to grow on me. And while still in the canon of his rankings, I had it at number 3 because I still consider The Shaming of the True and Toy Matinee better. I mean, this whole thing, if you would have, you know, this whole thing here, you just kind of look at the whole thing. I mean, it's a genius record for what it is. And I know a lot of people haven't found these videos, but they'll be up there. I may say my piece a bit on the blog about it. Let me try to link them all. But thank you for watching this video and all these videos about Thud. Like I said, I want to try to do a similar exercise for the multi-disc. I mean, you know, this could be a multi-disc of The Shaming of the True, but it's not. It's just, it's the album, and then it was supposed to be the vinyl, and then it has the extra version of Long Day's Life. But I can imagine the multi-disc could be like this, and you know, whenever that comes out, a year from now or 2 years from now, hopefully like a year from now, I'll go through, maybe I can do a couple months worth of videos where I'm doing every track. I mean, just naming the songs, you know, and all their origins, because so many of them, like stuff like Image Maker, and Serenade to Nothing, especially From Here to There, all have connections to, yeah, the spoken word stuff I don't know if I would review, but you have a Parade alternate version of Long Day's Life. That's all it really has, those two on this version. But anyway, that's about it for Thud and Kevin Gilbert. Like I said, I truly hope you can listen to Thud on Spotify, but I truly hope once that comes out, all these extra tracks that I talked about will be available for other people to watch. But thank you for watching again, and we'll see you next time.